All right. Welcome to another episode of Connect and Politic. We're here with a special guest. Please introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're currently located, and your favorite snack.
Ooh. My name is Andrea Kathy. I am currently in Alexandria, Virginia, and my favorite snack of all time is animal crackers.
Animal crackers. Wow, that's a classic.
Like the little box, the whole I actually can go run and get some and show you. Like I love animal crackers. Yeah.
Okay, what was your favorite food as a child?
Huh. Probably tacos. That's more as an adult. As a child, it's probably spaghetti.
Okay, but then okay. And this was homemade spaghetti?
Yeah.
Homemade.
My mother missed her calling as like a chef of some kind. She just is incredible. So it was never like spaghetti. You know, like you make little kids spaghetti and then it's over and done with. No, my mom would like make it into this like elaborate, beautiful meal. So I got spoiled very quick about being a little bit of a food snob.
Nice. Did some of her skill set rub off on you? Are you nice in the kitchen as well?
Yes, but I love to bake. So I will bake and try anything. Actually, my mom and I tag team during the holidays. So she definitely knocks it out with the cooking, and then I do all the baking. And a lot of people don't like baking. Cooking and baking are two different skill sets. So you can find somebody who's a great cook and they can't bake, or somebody who can bake and they can't cook. Because cooking, you can just like add some more stuff in there, or you can't do that with baking. It's very precise, or you're gonna have like a flat pound cake or something. You have to pay attention to the recipe. It's not everybody's forte.
And what's your specialty in baking?
I make a homemade pound cake, and it's actually very specific because it's cold oven. Everybody doesn't do a cold oven one. So actually when it's cold oven, it kind of makes it more like a angel food type of consistency. It's not very thick, it's very light. So I actually make them, and like my family buys them from me. But it's not like, since it's not a typical pound cake, it takes a lot longer because the oven's cold. So like it's like a 4 or 5 hour ordeal like to make it. So if somebody's like, hey, make me a pound cake, I'm like, I really gotta care about you kind of thing.
Well, I hope you care about me, and I hope you have another customer, because
I will make you a pound cake.
Got it. All right. So you said, spaghetti and taco as a child, but what's your favorite food as an adult?
I am like a taco fiend. So I have a secret squirrel spot that most people in DC do not know about, and I'm not going to reveal the name. And if I take you there, that means I love you. We are beyond friends. I don't tell anybody about this place. And I know like every good taco place in the DMV. And not like Taco Bamba or any of those. I'm talking about like real tacos. Like, yeah. Mm-mm.
Nice.
I'm like a taco connoisseur. Like if you bring me tacos and they're like for real tacos, like I will love you for life. Like my staff used to know that.
When was the last time you had some good tacos?
Probably like a month ago. Yeah. And the quarantine, I haven't ventured out too much, kind of keeping it within my little radius.
Got it. What's your fondest memory from childhood?
Oh, so when I was 8, so when I was 8, I was a little bit of like a girly tomboy. I still am in a lot of ways. And we had moved into this new neighborhood, and I have a younger brother, and all the kids in the neighborhood are playing around in our yard. I don't know if you've ever seen those like green power boxes kind of thing. Um, and I decided I was going to jump off. Like we played this game where we put rocks and we would jump over the rocks and then push them out a little further and jump over the rocks. And our parents were kind of, parents are outside talking, no, 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 no. And I heard my dad, his little deep voice, and he's like, hey, like you guys be careful. Literally the next time I jumped, I fell on the rock. I shattered my growth plate. My parents had to rush me at the time. The only Kaiser we belonged to Kaiser. It was in Springfield, Virginia. We lived in Reston. And I had to have pins in my ankle. And it was like a whole thing. But I remember my dad just being so calm. Like my mom, of course, was like, ah! And my dad just kind of picked me up and he's like, guys, stop crying. We're gonna get it fixed. And that's probably one of my most memorable childhood memories, kind of, because it was just like, I remember hearing, I can even to this day can hear my dad's voice being like, they call me Pooh, and him being like, hey Pooh, don't, nah, and then like the next time, bam. And he was like, so the next time I say, hey, I was like, I know, Daddy. I still have pins in my ankle to this day. Like
from back then?
Yeah, because I literally shattered my whole entire, it's like, I didn't know this, but you grow from like your ankle up, your leg. And I shattered the whole entire growth plate. So they fused it back together. And I was, back then, I was in like the ugly cast, and they had to take the pins out and then put me back. So I was in a cast for like 4 or 5 months. Like by the time it was all said and done.
Get a lot of messages and
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very I joke I had the Blackish experience, like the TV show.
Yeah.
My childhood, like my dad was militant and he made us be, I was Harriet Tubman for Halloween one time. Like I mean, we lived in like
do you have pictures of this?
I do have pictures, and we went around the neighborhood, and we lived in an all-white neighborhood. And I remember walking around, and my dad took us, and knocking on the door. So people thought I was a hobo, like I'm dressed like period costume. Yeah. And I had a speech, and he was like, "Go ahead," and I was like, "I'm Harriet Tubman, founder of the Underground Railroad."
Was he dressed as anything?
He just had on like normal dad clothes.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I have some funny childhood memories.
So, do you miss anything about being a child?
Yeah, I miss just things being simple. Like you are in such a rush to become an adult and like be out in the world by yourself and do all these things. And I think like as my grandparents have gotten older and some of them have passed in the past couple, like 2 or 3 years, and, my parents are getting older, stuff like that. It's just like, I just miss just the simplicity of it all. And, I was lucky. Both sets of my grandparents were alive until about 3 years ago. So when I was born, my grandparents were 45. They were really young. So I had fun parents. I had fun grandparents. Like, I just remember so many things, like just hanging out with them. They were still very, active. Yeah. So, I kind of missed like a little bit not enjoying that stuff, especially as a teenager. You're kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be with them. And I miss kind of just being with my family in that space, and everybody's healthy and younger and vibrant. When you look back on it, you're like, that time went by really fast. Yeah.
No, that's an amazing experience. So how do you think, I mean, you grew up with all your grandparents. That in itself I think is rare.
And they actually grew up together. So my family is originally from Charlotte. So both sides of my family, they all know each other. Like,
Wow.
yeah. My parents, they like knew each other from the time they were born, pretty much.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna interview you, but eventually your parents have to come on. I have to do like a couple interview with your parents, and we both of them at the same time. Like
yeah, you'll laugh at my dad. My parents are now divorced, and it's so funny to think of them married. I hate saying that because they just seem like two totally different people. And my dad is just like this militant, and my mom is just like, she was an educator, and she's just so like sweet, and just my mom doesn't curse. She's just like, I call her like, she's an angel. I'm like, what angel duty are you doing today? And she's like, oh, Andrea, so together they're equally funny to me in their own way.
That's gonna be good. We have to make that happen.
Yeah.
So how do you think your childhood helped groom you into the person you are today?
Oh, well, me and my brother are almost 7 years apart, or 6.5. Actually, his birthday is on Saturday. So there was a period of time it was just me with my parents, and I'm a daddy's girl, and my dad is kind of unique, like I said, in the fact that he really, really drove it home that he wanted me to be a very smart, educated, independent woman. That was very important to him, and my parents definitely, were on the same page in that respect. But just the father-daughter bond out of that, he really drove it home. So he really, didn't let me, I don't want to say not be a girl, but he also like, I can change a tire. I can change the oil in my car if I really, really had to. Like, he just wanted me to be self-sufficient in a way that I didn't feel like I needed to grow up and just cook and clean and be a wife, and that's all that was to it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that it made me the person I am because I'm very driven, I'm very ambitious. I think, like I said, I had the best of both worlds from my parents. Like, I'm very philanthropic, which definitely comes from both sides. My dad definitely like challenged my thought process. So if I would come to him, and my mom too, with her being an educator, I couldn't just have the answer. It had to be, well, why did you come up with that? Or we watched the news, the nightly news every day, and it drove me crazy, especially as a teenager. Like, I hated it. But my dad would challenge, like, well, okay, you just saw that on the news. Like, why did that happen? Or what's your understanding of it? And at the time, I used to just be like, I just want to go get on the phone and talk to my friends. But I feel like I look at things from every vantage point, and probably is what led me into hospitality a little bit because I kind of stepped back, and it's almost like I was telling a friend recently, he was joking with me about, oh, how do you see stuff like that? And it's literally like a snapshot in my head of like, okay, bam, 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 this is what needs to happen. And if we go off course, then I'll self-adjust and do X, Y, and Z. So it probably has lent itself to my career over the years. So I'm always grateful. My parents definitely drove that home, that I could do whatever I wanted to do in life, and that was fine with them. But to know I had options outside of just like, my dad is an engineer. So he often would be like, do you want to be an engineer? Like, I'm horrible at math. That didn't work out. But, I appreciate the confidence that they always have in me and still have in me and kind of letting me do my own thing because I'm kind of the child that questions everything of the two of us.
What would you say are the most important lessons you learned from both of them, right? And also, so I want to hear the lessons from them, and I'm also interested in the lessons you got from your grandparents.
um, Both of my parents, one thing that I love about them, and it's something that's important, and that my brother and I have naturally carried over into our adult lives, is that we care about people. Like I probably care about people too much. I'm very empathetic to someone's cause, and especially in the workplace, I know that you have to understand somebody's emotions and what's going on sometimes in their household or whatever for them to kind of be the best version of themselves at work. So I appreciate the fact that my parents always, like my dad actually taught a class at Howard when I was like much younger. I was probably like 10. And, you know, he would take us down there because we lived in Reston. So we lived in the suburbs. And, you know, my dad was like, no, you're going to go. And just because that homeless man's right there, you're not going to be scared of him. Like, you're never going to be scared of your own people. So my mom's the same way. I never felt that there wasn't anything I could do. Like, there wasn't a time where someone was going to tell me I couldn't do something because it was driven, like drilled into my head that I was the smartest girl and I would figure it out and I would get it done. And so I've always carried that with me. Like, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna figure it out and get you the answer. If you know you need that extra push, I'm here. You can call me day or night. And that's something that I've seen my parents do my whole entire life. So I mean, I have another brother. I call him my brother, but my dad was his big brother. And my parents adopted him so he could get through high school and give him a better situation. And so just seeing things like that, you know, definitely impacts you. And, you know, probably sometimes I'm like, oh, I could, if I had a more like vicious kind of attitude, I'd be making more money, because I feel like my parents have always said, think about the human part of it first before the monetary aspect. So it's a gift and a curse.
What would you say are the lessons from your grandparents?
Man, what? So my grandparents are just like, I might tear up talking about them. My grandparents are just amazing. So especially not that I have a favorite if my family sees this, but my dad's dad is to me like the dopest person on the planet. I mean, just the things he's done just fascinate me. And like, I don't even know how to explain my dad, my grandfather. He's kind of this like burly guy, big beard, always has had a large beard, and you know, now he's 87. But back then, he, you know, for instance, he went to Salem, and he was only there for a year. He couldn't stay. He came back, and he became like a long distance truck driver. So when I was a little kid, I remember we would get down to Charlotte to visit, and I would stay up because my dad and my grandmother and my mom would be like, you know, Papa, I'll be back. And I would be like, oh, I want to see him when he gets home, And that whole entire time, I learned later as an adult, he started his own real estate company. So the whole time he was doing long distance truck driving, and then he was studying to get his real estate license. And then he did that. He started his own real estate company and had it for years. I mean, I was probably in junior high school at that point, up until he was about 60, 70, with selling houses, got contracts with the Panthers when they came. And then I found out really like maybe 4 years ago, he filed a lawsuit when he was working for the trucking company because they weren't giving him overtime hours because he was Black. And so the case back then was like a big deal. It was in the paper, and he won $7,000. This was like 1975 or something like that. And so there's a museum in Charlotte called the Mint Museum, and it's about Charlotte and stuff like that. And so he's in there, and we just happened to be in the museum, just me and my other cousins from my other side, and I'm like, that's my grandfather. I was like, and he was like, oh yeah, that happened. And then on the other, so a lot of people, he was like a trailblazer in Charlotte, and a lot of people didn't like him. They thought he was arrogant, because why do you want more? Why do you want all this stuff, da 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 da? And he just kind of blazed his own path, and just some of the stuff he's like, I'm always like, he's so stoic, but like I have a dollhouse that he built me when I was probably 6. My parents have a picture of it. And he literally built the dollhouse while he was studying back then to get his license and stuff like that. So I'm always, of course, I love all my grandparents, and they're all very typical Southerners, very like, you go to church, you pray, be grateful, be kind, be everything like that. But I really probably hold like this little space in my heart for my grandfather, because he just, and even now when I talk to him, he always just has like a, just very stoic, but he just all of a sudden will drop some kind of gem that I'm like, oh. Or like when my grandmother passed a couple of years ago, I was down there for Christmas, and he opened up this closet in the house, and my grandmother was very meticulous. And I knew she had furs, but she had this beautiful white coat, and it had this fur collar. And I was like, where did that come from? And he said, your grandmother saw it in the store right when I started making some good money, and I couldn't afford it. And he's like, I asked the lady, the coat was gone. It was like a year later. And he's like, I asked the lady, she remembered the coat. I got the coat made, and I got it for your grandmother. And I got to wear that coat to the last Obama Christmas party at the White House. And just to see him like tear up that I was wearing the coat, because I was just amazed he would do that. Like, wow. And he's like, oh, wasn't that big of a deal? And I'm like, Papa, this coat is like lit. Like, and then I'll always have it. It'll never go out of style. It's like anytime I wear it, and I'm scared to wear it because it's like an off-white. But people are like, oh my God, where'd you get that coat? I'm like, back
up. No, that's great. That's great. The jewels from grandparents and the elderly is priceless, to say the least.
Yeah. They have struggles. My grandfather thinks our generation is so dramatic.
Oh, of course, yeah.
He's like, this stuff been going on. Y'all just get to see it on tape, and then y'all just want to jump up and on the little social media stuff. It's just sit down and do something about it.
Yeah, I love the OGs. Oh man, yeah, I'm telling you, the OGs. I love them. What are your favorite things to do for self-care?
So anybody who knows me, I get my nails done once a week, faithfully, all the time.
Even during COVID?
Quarantine?
What did you do during the quarantine?
I learned, I did them myself. I was like, I have paid good money over the years, and I only get like manicures and pedicures, so I'm not getting like gel and all that stuff. And I was like, I can remember what these ladies did. So I bought like the nail drying spray. I have a little setup. Like, I was not playing. I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. So my nails have stayed done during the quarantine, because I will not go to a nail salon. No. I know that sounds like very simplistic, but it just working in hospitality, that would be sometimes all I would get, like with a 70-hour week sometimes, is like that 1 hour I could go get my nails done. And so it became like my thing.
And that's really the the main thing you do for self-care?
Um, yeah, well, no, I do a lot of things actually. So I, this is self care, but not, I love sneakers, like almost obsessively so.
You said
Um,
sneakers?
Sneakers, yeah. I have a lot of sneakers.
Uh,
Um, a chunk of them I haven't worn. I just have sneakers. And I kind of came into loving sneakers like way later. And it was just kind of like by accident. And so actually self-care for me in a lot of ways is like cleaning my sneakers because they become like an extension of myself. So on a Sunday, I will like clean away and that's my thing. Also, I'm a little OCD about cleaning. So to other people, that's not like, doesn't sound like self-care, but I like everything kind of organized and it has a place and it just kind of clears my mind. Like I turn on music and I go to town just getting everything in order.
nice. What are your top 5 kicks?
Okay. So I have to break this down. So I love Air Max ones like I can't even explain. Like I have so many pairs, it's kind of ridiculous. So what I started doing is I started doing Nike ID. So because they haven't really released anything good in terms of ones in like the longest time. So it's like the same colorway getting repeated 80 million times. I kind of have that shoe. There's just so many times I can like buy a red Air Max or buy a blue one. I mean, so I'm like, okay. So I started designing my own. So usually my top 5 pretty much are the ones I've designed. But recently I would like get up and get them real quick. But I recently, before the quarantine happened, I bought these Air Max 90s and they have like leopard print on them. They're the LXs. Oh my God, I like love them. And I haven't been able to wear them because they're so dope. And I'm like, where am I wearing these shoes right now in the quarantine? Like, I'm not gonna wear them to Target. I'm like, this is too special of a shoe.
Do you want to show them? Is it
um,
far or is it can you see it? Is it close to you?
It'll take me about 2 seconds, but this is like now becoming my favorite shoe. So hold please.
The kick game is
Okay.
serious.
See, haven't worn them. They're here. And they're just so pretty. And I love colors. So, and the detail on them, you can't see it, but they're terry cloth inside. This is a pretty important thing to me. So,
Is it denim?
yeah, so there's denim on this part.
Yeah.
This actually is leather right here. This is like a hologram. And then the inside is terry cloth. And then the sole, like I don't want to mess up the sole. I mean, these aren't coming out until we have like a vaccine and we're good to go.
Oh boy, kicks. Oh, man.
That's how strongly I feel about them. Yeah.
What do you do for self-growth?
Okay. So I am big on therapy. If people haven't gone to therapy, I would highly recommend it. Um, Therapy has been like a game changer for me because I definitely, on one hand, I love the things my parents taught me about being, resilient and all those things. Sometimes you hit a wall with kind of always trying to be strong, always trying to push through, always trying to like not let things phase you. And I think because the nature of my career, I take on other people's like problems, issues. Like if you're doing an event, events are really like free therapy in all honesty. So you start kind of taking that energy on. So it's really important to me, in terms of my growth and development as a person, to always kind of maintain that connection with having an outlet outside of like my friends and family that I can like funnel into, and that is therapy. So I'm definitely a big advocate about therapy. Another thing is just my circle of friends. I try to maintain people who are always smarter than me. um, I try to have relationships with people that I want to really grow and develop, in different ways. And uh, it's been helpful to me because I feel like I'm a person who's always learning. And so I've picked up people along the way. One of my favorite people is this woman named Debbie. Uh, and she has her own company and she's just amazing. And she was actually President Clinton's secretary when he was in office. And she's like this feisty little 72-year-old lady who's never going to retire. And you know, she'll call me up, and she's originally from Dallas, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm going to the mall. Come meet me at the mall. You'll be fine. You're not going to die of corona. Let's go walk around the mall. You know, she's she's like the best thing ever. So those are just the conversations that having with her, and you know, just trying to always improve myself and be the best version of myself, with therapy is always like self-growth for me, you know.
Yes. And then what do you do to reduce distractions?
Sneakers. um, you said, what do I do to relax?
Well, that's another question. Well, let's talk about that. What do you do to relax? But I said, what do you do to reduce distractions?
Oh, I'm very good at tuning people out when I need to. Even though I make myself very accessible, I definitely during this quarantine have learned to just not answer my phone all the time, to kind of take my time in terms of like what I invest in and who I invest in. And that's usually how I channel it out. I watch TV now in segments. I mean, it sounds small, but instead of just kind of like having the TV on and stuff like that, I'm a little bit more intentional about I just need some quiet time. I definitely value quiet, you know, just being able to like turn everything off for a little while and just clear my head. I love uh, music. So that actually kind of helps a little bit too.
And when you say music, we talked about this earlier, so I'm sure it's not the woo. But is that the Klan? But is so what type of music are you listening to help clear your head?
So I goes back to childhood a little bit. I love jazz, which is kind of funny because I hated it growing up because I heard it so much. But I am like, right now, I'm listening to like a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I didn't realize how lit the Isley Brothers were. And I heard this song and I was like, oh, I've never heard that song. And it was on like Sirius XM or something. And so I actually listened to the whole album. I was like, oh, hey, I hear all these samples I didn't even really know. I'm like, this is Isley Brothers. So a lot of that. I am like the ultimate Jay-Z fan. So I'm always going to listen. If you get in my car, you will hear at least 5 Jay-Z songs like back to back to back. Like I'm always, that's my go-to. A lot of women might hate me. I'm not like a huge like Beyonce fan. uh, so I kind of stick to, sometimes I feel like I'm a little behind the times because I tend to like just listen to the stuff I already like.
Yeah.
Not too much that's new. Like any of the new rap is over my head. Like I don't know what they're saying. It all sounds the same. And now I feel like I sound like my parents. I'm like, it literally sounds the same. My little cousin's like, no, but that's so and so. And I'm like, it sounded like the last song. And then the person, there was this one little song, Blueberry Fuego, my little cousin had, that was cute. I was like, oh, this is cute. Okay, yeah, I like this. Yeah.
What's your favorite Jay album and favorite Jay song?
Black Album is my favorite. Allure is probably my all-time favorite song ever. Funny enough, when I was in college, I got to see Jay-Z, Biggie, just gonna tell you how old I am, but Jay-Z, Biggie, Foxy Brown, and this is before she hated Little Kim and they hated each other. And it was $10. And I remember like begging my parents to send me $10. And at the time, we didn't realize that was such a big deal, but it was like, oh, we got to see Jay-Z where nobody was like paying attention. And of course, like, you know, I pretty much love everything. 444, I really, 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 really loved. I thought that album was like ahead of its time, considering the stuff that's going on right now. I don't think people really listen to it because I think now they're into like that mumble. I don't even know what they're talking about, like Percocets. I don't know what they're talking about. So like, if you have that on and then you're listening to like 444, like Jay-Z's album is just too much. Like it's like, come on, dude.
Oh, man, you're hilarious. I love this. Anyway, are you, since you're such a big Hov fan, are you into Nas as well, or are you anti Nas?
I am into Nas, but for me, Jay wins out over Nas. But if Nas wanted to like date me, or you know, I would be the biggest Nas. I think Nas is like the cutest thing ever. I'd be like, hey, yeah, I'm your biggest fan.
That's funny. So you like Jay's music better than Nas, but you like Nas, as a person better than Jay.
Yeah. Because what's funny is Nas, like all the events I've done over the years, I did this event at Super Bowl and Nas was there and he was like the nicest guy. Like he was so nice, so chill. And I was just like, and he's cute and he's got like the whole New York swag. Like he's just all like, I was like, oh, he's like adorable. But then I think he was like dating Nicki Minaj then or doing whatever. I was a little my feelings. Could have shot a shot or something. I don't know.
Well, Nas has a new album that you might like, so you should check it out.
Yeah, I haven't really like listened to it. See, now if it was Jay, I would have like downloaded it immediately, knew every word. Like literally, a friend of mine bought me this like really cool Jay-Z like daily affirmation book.
Nice.
That like, listen, that made my whole life.
No, that's dope. Since you like Foxy, there's a song on there with the whole firm. So Mega,
Are you serious?
Mega, AZ, Nas. So, I mean, no, listen to the album. You'll like it.
I used to love AZ too. Like,
Yeah, similar to you. Yeah, and A's he spazzed on it. Mega spazzed, and Foxy did like she just went out of his world. So it's crazy. Like it really.
I love you because you like actual like hip hop, and not the.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact you knew who AZ was is thumbs up in my book.
Yeah. So if you were to write a book, what would it be about?
um, I would write a book aimed at women primarily, about how to be resilient and not like the atypical, like, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. There were two like key moments in my life where I had to really tap into myself and just like literally reinvent myself. And I think a lot of times I find that women, as of late, because of social media, um, like everybody, you compare yourself. You don't really have a good sense of how to push through. And I think we see all these self-help kind of like, you should do this, you should do that, and blah, 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 and read this and read this affirmation. When some of the best advice I got when I was going through that period was I had to be still with myself. And people just really don't invest in that, especially women. We like jump in and out of relationships. We think someone's responsible for like healing us, whether it be the next man or woman you're involved with, or I have kids and I'm caught up with that. And I think people don't take a lot of time, not just women, but people just don't take a lot of time to like really get to know themselves. And I feel like I'm at that point, like I can tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, my flaws, the things that, because I've spent a lot of time just really investing in what works for me and what doesn't. So I'd probably write a book aimed at that. And then my crazy father and his militant cross-pollination, but we live in the suburbs childhood experience.
That would be a dope book. So you've alluded to this, a few times. What do you do in your professional life, and does what you do now, is it what you dream about as a kid?
Yes and no. It's funny you said that because it kind of referenced something my brother said the other day. I work in the hospitality industry. I've worked many different facets. So I've worked on the sports end. I've run a nightclub. Uh, I've been on the nonprofit side. Probably my best career experience was I ran POV at the W for 5 years, and that tapped into everything I needed to pull together. Right now, because of COVID, I'm currently unemployed. So that's interesting being in the hospitality industry. And this is the first time ever I've not had a job. Like it's like a very foreign concept because when you work in events, you're constantly busy. And so all the times I'm like, oh, I need a vacation, I need a vacation. And I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, hospitality is a little different. A lot of people don't understand it. They think it's waiters, bartenders, cocktail waitresses. I remind people, I'm like, hey, if you've ever gone to a conference, there's probably like a team of 5 to 10 people from a company that is an events department that put that together. So it's a very broad umbrella of what hospitality means. It's a little heartbreaking right now to see. I mean, I have friends who have really high profile jobs, who are like VP of events or director of events, don't have jobs, things like that. So it's been challenging because our skill set transfers over to a lot of different things. A lot of my friends call me a fixer because you just have to be very quick on your feet. You have to anticipate like the next thing. Like before you even talk to me at an event, I probably know why you're coming up to me about what your next issue is. Probably I'm already like, oh, the air conditioning is too cold, let me turn it up before you can even start talking because your brain is constantly thinking, kind of taking snapshots a little bit of what could happen. So I'm learning to, as quick as I am on my feet, I'm learning during this period to kind of take a step back. I've worked really hard for 20 years and kind of just chill out a little bit. And there's a lot of different avenues that I could go down for a career change. So I think I do not want to go back to the hospitality industry, even when it bounces back. And I think people are underestimating it's going to be a long time before it bounces back. I'm talking like 2-3 years, if not more. So I'm grateful to my skill set and my tribe of people around me. I have lucked out and I've had some really dope people. So like one of my best friends is a stylist, so I've always worked with him. So it's funny when you brought up the styling. So just different opportunities and trying to figure out what's next. I've always just been a busy bee. So my grandfather, ironically enough, was like, maybe this was God trying to tell you to slow down, because he would tell me all the time I needed to slow down.
Nice. So this is not what you envision, or working in hospitality. This is not what you imagined or dreamed about doing as a kid, was it? Or what did you dream about doing as a kid?
I wanted to be a fashion designer for the longest time, but what is ironic is that I've always been planning things. So, like in Reston, we didn't have like a teen center, and I organized, and we have a teen center. It actually still was there. I planned prom, like I planned graduation. So I've always been planning, and I guess it came natural, and I didn't know that's where I was headed per se. I mean, especially back then, the way the events industry is now, that didn't exist. Like some of the jobs I've had, like when I've spoken on some panels, and there's been people who are like, how did you get in the nightclub industry? And I was like, it literally was a mistake. Like someone said they needed help with some marketing, and that kind of transformed into some other things. And then all of a sudden I was running the club. So I guess, yeah, it was kind of what I envisioned subconsciously and didn't ever kind of know how to verbalize that at the time.
Is there anything you want to do or learn on your bucket list?
Yes. I'm a huge sports fan. Huge. So when I was working in sports with events, people would kind of often joke I should be like an agent. And I actually really would love to do that and go back to law school and kind of go that route. You don't necessarily have to go to law school, but it helps. That would be super dope. I actually would love to kind of learn some more about things in the tech world, because with events, the hospitality world, the tech world have started to merge together. So like how you can jump online and like literally book bottle service and pick your table, and you can map out your whole event online. And I actually think with COVID, that's probably the next route for event, like people on the event side where you're like an event director. I think that's going to be the new landscape, is like, how do we do all of this virtual, and how do I learn how to utilize these tools, besides like this typical like booking information. So I would love to know more on the tech side. I actually belong, funny enough, to this women's tech group. A friend of mine pulled me in, and the ladies are super cool, even though I couldn't tell you anything about, but they're a lot of them are like founders of companies. They started startups, and I think it's really nice that they, have asked me questions, and they're like, so if you were to create event software that XYZ, and I'm like, well, you can't do this and this and this, like this variable, and then they know the tech stuff. So my dad would probably like cry tears of joy to hear me saying that I would want to learn anything in the tech space right now.
Well, you're gonna share this with him, so he's gonna love seeing that part.
Yeah, he would be very excited. He'd be like, finally, one of my kids went that route.
Is there anything you want to unlearn?
Yeah. As much, I've done very well in the hospitality space, but I wish I could have unlearned a couple of things in terms of my dedication to it over the years, and maybe like the fork in the road I'm at now. I wish maybe COVID happened 10 years earlier. Not that I wanted it to happen, but like I was forced to like kind of pursue, like I know how to do so many things, but I wish I hadn't been so dedicated to, like, you lose a lot of your life. People don't realize when you work in the hospitality industry, you work on holidays, you miss family events, friends events, you're coming to stuff late because you're always creating a memorable moment for somebody else. So like you don't oftentimes get to experience those moments for yourself. So it's like sometimes I wish I could go back in time and not have rushed from like an event or had to jump on a plane and miss, the end of hanging out with my family for the weekend because I have to do this event. Or, sometimes I wonder like, well, what was it really all like worth? Like, I wish I could have, maybe, sounds weird, not been as successful in that realm as I have been, but I mean, but I love the fact that it's opened me up to like a whole world of like different people. So that's been really cool.
Any advice for your younger self?
Yes. I would tell my younger self not to be so critical. I have plenty of time, that the world's not going to come to an end if I tell somebody no. To be a little bit more protective of myself first. And to invest and I guess invest more in making my voice heard. Instead of like, I joked with you, I was like, I'm used to being in the background because I'm used to like, to know that it's okay to sometimes like roll your own shine, have a humble brag and not feel bad about it. I definitely think for Black people especially, and it's, women in that realm too, like I wish we would take more time to be proud of like our accomplishments. And I wish I would have told my younger self, like, there's not going to be an end point to my accomplishment until I am no longer here. So, like, toot my own horn, be that cheerleader. Um, it's okay to be the individual and like show off a little bit.
What's the best advice you've received about money?
Um, actually, funny enough, from my grandfather, that I'll never have enough money. Meaning, you'll always chase money, always. Even if I have 50 million in the bank, how do I get 100 million? So to decide how money means in my life, like what it means to my actual life, like, is it just a tool because I want to get somewhere else? Is it a tool because I want to help people, but don't let money be the factor that drives me? And I know that probably will sound crazy to people. And I used to kind of look at him crazy because it didn't make sense to me. But I think the older I've gotten, I understand it. It actually makes perfect sense because, like I was saying previously, when you're working that hard, and I have worked hard, and you're like chasing a check, and that's ultimately what you're doing. You're chasing money. Um, a lot of times you look up and you have the money, but it's like, but what does it mean? Because then the next step is like, how do I get more of it? How do I have this? How do I have that? So that's one thing. Another thing, that money is I don't think people realize we're tethered to money by our emotional response. So one time I was like, my friend did a TED talk, which was super cool. And one of the girls, her TED talk was about money shame. And she gave this great piece of advice afterwards. And she's just like, I'm a financial advisor and I went bankrupt. Like, like everybody has their own story and relationship with money. So kind of like what my grandfather said, she's like, try to decide early on what that relationship is. Is it a good relationship? Is it combative? What is it? Because it literally can rule your thought process. And I thought that was like very well put together because it is a relationship. So yes, I love nice things just like everybody else. But I can't take my Gucci bags and and sneakers and stuff with me. So what do those things really ultimately mean in my life? So if I'm now gonna buy those things, like back in the day, I used to have the Louis Vuittons and all this stuff. Like I needed it. And guess what? It didn't matter. We're sitting in a quarantine. I can't wear any of it. It's not serving me anywhere. My Gucci bags just, it's like none of it at the end of the day all of a sudden doesn't mean anything. So it's like, so the quarantine has changed my relationship with money and has made me realize I can live with a lot less. Mm. Like I didn't realize how much money I spent on just like stupid stuff like Starbucks and just going into Target and buying something stupid. Like I've saved so much money, not just being out here, but I think that's money is your girlfriend or your boyfriend. So
do you think that your new relationship with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, do you think this new relationship is the dynamics of the relationship is gonna continue after the quarantine gets lifted? Like let's say 5 years from now when people are moving freely and you've resettled into your life. You think it's going to continue?
Yeah. Um, just because before I was so mindless in terms of like I get a check, I get a salary, I don't have to worry about anything. Oh, here's my savings. It doesn't um I think it will forever be changed because I didn't realize how superficial I was. I'll be honest. And that's been humbling in a lot of ways because you couldn't tell me that I was shallow about anything like that, but in this space, you have a lot of time to think, and especially when you're unemployed and your industry does pretty much doesn't exist anymore right now. I just really didn't realize how like money drives so many things, good and bad. It drives your mood, everything. So I think that I won't take it for granted as much, and that the things that I do want to spend are actually quantifiable. Like I want a Birkin bag. Not I've been known about Birkin bags. Like all these girls are just finding out about Birkin bags. Been there, done that. I want a Birkin bag because it's a beautiful bag. It's an investment piece. I've always been obsessed with it. And guess what? I want a Birkin bag. I want to get on the list to get the Birkin. When they call me, I want to be able to be like, hey, take my credit card. Go ahead, knock it out. I'm getting this Birkin. But guess what? I have 2 to 3 times that amount of that Birkin bag just laying around, liquid cash, no credit, whatever I want to do. I know how much the Birkin I want is. So like that's more meaningful to me than just like, oh, I need to put on these Louboutins. Oh, I got these YSLs today. Like that stuff meant so much to me before. And I'm like, what does it matter? Like, I could go to Zara and buy the same shoe if I wanted to and paint it red on the bottom, which is really that important. I mean, it's the same shoe. Literally the same shoe.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a deep dive on this topic and talk about it for days. Maybe we'll do a part 2, just talking about the state that you're currently in and some of the disconnects and the way you see the world as it pertains to money.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the toughest? Say that again.
I said I appreciate my vantage point now, like a little bit better.
Yeah. What would you say has been the toughest thing you've had to tackle, and what helped you get through it?
So I was in an abusive relationship in college, and that by far was the hardest thing I've ever had to like move past because it was definitely people have a certain image of me that I've also created to some degree where they see me as like very resilient, very, headstrong, like, and so, to humble yourself and have to ask for help, one, is like a hard thing for somebody who is used to being viewed as the person who people come to for help. Then you're going to somebody for help. And even though it was college and I mean, that's been many moons ago now. It's something that forever changes your life. And I hate to say it, it's like a secret club almost. Like, I can definitely look at women or talk to them. And I know that they're abuse survivors just from the demeanor, the conversation. It's it's very challenging. So along for a long time. It was a secret. I wouldn't tell anybody about that previous relationship. Probably in the past like 5 years, I'm much more forthcoming about it. Uh, and that's where I went to a lot of therapy after that relationship because I didn't understand how I got there. Like it didn't make sense to myself. Like how did I end up with this person? How? But it out of that experience, it was made me such an amazing person overall. Um, and I'm always proud of myself for like really standing firm and kind of moving forward because usually most women who've been in abusive relationships end up in other abusive relationships. And I like pulled myself up and said, I'm not going through this again. So I took a lot of time, and that's what I mean when you were talking about the book. Like I took a lot of time to like understand like all the dynamics of that type of relationship and how it kind of like creeped into my life at the time and why I was there. So that was probably the hardest thing because people really do judge you. Like if you're like, oh, I was in an abusive relationship, people kind of cock their head like, what? Like, oh, I would never let somebody hit me and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, it's not that simplistic. Like, it's not like somebody one day just turns around and punches you or hits you or anything like that. It's definitely like a gradual, slow build. And then all of a sudden you're kind of in chaos. So I definitely work with abuse survivors. And that's always has helped me over the years and has kept me kind of like aware that you would be surprised at some of the women I've encountered. It's not who you think at all. CEOs of companies, different people. So the fact that I stuck to my guns and made better choices, not because I do think you have to kind of own your truth. And, I had to make sure that I just came out of it in a different light. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, I have so many questions, but that's for another episode. There are a lot of questions. So you say, would you say? I mean, when you said that, almost like it's a secret society, and that you can pick, like, you can meet a woman and know that she's a survivor just by talking to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just as a listener, me listening to you say that, one, I was shocked, and then two, I started thinking of, what are the clues, or is it something that is only, someone who's been in it would know it, like it takes one to know one type thing. That somebody can just look and say, oh, okay, that explains, some of their behavior, or,
I find a lot of the women, after I got myself together, the women that I encountered, ironically enough, are not the image that you see on TV, where you think of like a battered woman and oh, she's so weak, and it actually usually is the women who are like tough cookies and people rely on them all the time, and I think that is sometimes not placing blame on anybody, but I think sometimes that's how we have ended up in those situations because it isolates you because people are so used to you being like, oh, Drea's got it. Oh, yeah, she's fine. Call Drea, ask her, da 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 da. So when something happens, you're like, I can't call that person. They're always calling me and telling me blah 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 blah. Blah. So most like when I tell people what I've been through, they're like, you can't be, you're joking. Like they don't. It's almost like a cognitive dissonance. Like they just are like, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? You're not like that. And I'm like, no, it's usually the girls who like push through, and I usually can tell, like when I worked at the W, I had a large staff and there was a couple of people, I pulled them to the side. I was like, or I can tell from the interaction, if I meet a guy and like a couple, I can immediately tell, like from just the interaction, what's going on. And that doesn't mean like when you say abuse, there's a large gamut. It doesn't mean you might not be getting hit. It could be a lot of verbal narcissistic kind of behavior. And I think what troubles me right now with social media is that a lot of these kids are very isolated in terms of like their interaction is just like how we are right now, and they FaceTime all the time and they don't know how to communicate. So I have some friends who've had, their kids. Now we have kids. Some people have kids that I'm friends with that are older, and they're like, I think such and such is going on. Can you talk to her? And it's just like, oh, I'm fine. I always tell people, I'm like, listen, people who say they're fine all the time and they got it or they're cool or oh, and you're like, oh, they're okay. I'm like, no, dig a little bit more than if they give you the I'm fine. Or if you're used to hearing that from a friend repetitively, like that's a red flag to me now. Like I don't let my friends, whether it be male or female anymore, especially with like mental health, like ever constantly say, like if I'm like, hey, how's it been going? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. If I hear that more than 3 conversations with you, or no, it's like a red flag. Cause I'm like, nobody's that good. Everybody's got stuff. Like what's really happening? That's why like mental health for me is so important. And I want so badly for Black people to really embrace that, because I think it would free up a lot of our personal historical struggles. Like we're not always okay. Nobody's always okay. Like, so I always also tell men, kind of how you asked, just pay attention to the women in your life. Like, pay attention if they're always like rushing off the phone with you because their boyfriend called, or they can't, you know what I mean? Or I gotta go, I can't talk to you right now. Oh, let me call you back. Or, oh, I can't wear this. Or, oh my God, he won't like that. Like if you really just listen to people just in general, they'll tell you everything you want to know about them.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are jewels. Okay, there's a couple questions I have to ask, which I keep saying we should do another episode, but so the whole I'm fine thing, right? You said, you become concerned when someone is, always fine. But what if they're a stoic like your grandpa?
No. Like, I will say this, and anybody who knows me will attest to this too. It's almost like I have a stamp on my head in some ways. Like, people will just tell me their stuff. And it's a safe space. So I feel like over the years, I've learned to really read the like, I don't want to be bothered, or like, I got a lot of shit going on. And I think, I think we don't have a lot of emotional intelligence as just a country, even though we talk about it now. I think people are very tone deaf to what other people's struggles are. So I'm always just a firm believer that if you zone in, you can tell what's wrong with somebody, whether they're stoic, whether they're just kind of apathetic, because that's a form of mental health. Like, you might be stoic, but like there's something else going on. And do you need to talk to me per se? No, but I just don't always like to have it in a space where I just let somebody walk away, which I think if you have been, especially like coming from an abusive relationship, I think I'm much more attuned to like, is somebody okay? Because I think there's that always that part of me that wishes somebody had been like, are you really okay? Like, what's really going on with you besides you smiling? So I think just as human nature, just as people, I think we need to do a better job of like listen to your friend when you get on the phone with them. If you're calling to shoot the shit, okay, fine. But if you ask somebody like, hey, how you doing? If you're just asking because that's like your precursor to get to what you want, cool, so be it. But if you're really genuinely asking and the person responds and it's just like really listen to their response. Like people are not, we're not that good at acting. So like if you're really like, hey, no, for real, you good? Like you sure you're okay? The person might at the moment get annoyed, but really it will touch them that you were like, I dug a little bit deeper than that like surface. Yeah, I'm good. And asked you what was going on. If they don't want to tell you, so be it. It's not, don't take offense to it, but I think we have so many more people committing suicide and harming themselves and suffering in silence because people just aren't communicating and they're not listening. And so it's just like, I had a girl who worked with me at the W who committed suicide, and you couldn't have told us that, girl. Like, the girl came to work with happy the day before, like, to us. And so you do sit back, like, should I have asked, like, I just think within my circle of friends, I'm always cognizant if like we're in a group chat and certain people don't answer all the time, especially now. Like, I'll hit them on the side, like, hey, you okay? Like, what's been going on? Sometimes people are like, I just didn't want to deal with it, or I didn't want to talk to them, or I got this on my mind. It's just that little extra step to me, that should be a part of like humanity, period.
Yeah. So you're saying that Connect and Politic needs to be a lot bigger, and I need to do more of these conversations with, even though my goal is 365, I should do, it should just do hundreds of thousands. I should do.
Yeah, and because I'll say this, like, I think the concept is amazing. And like the fact that I I'm usually somebody who, I'm an extrovert to most people, but I'm very much an introvert about like things that struggles I've gone through because I'm so used to being resilient. And I think people have unique stories like you're already doing, but it's just like that next layer that's underneath there that I think resonates with people. Because when I definitely have told my story, like when I spoke on this panel, it was like at Howard, this was 2 years ago, and those girls thought I was the coolest thing ever. Oh, I ran this nightclub for 3 years, blah, blah, blah. And I was on a panel with like some reality stars, like, oh, I'm little old me. And I really didn't say anything, right? And one of the girls was sitting in the back and she rose her hand. She's like, hey, the girl, like pointing at her. And we were like, yeah. She was just like, yeah, I want to understand, like, you've done all this dope stuff. How did you get there? And I was like, honestly, because I had this one incident that I couldn't let define me. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you interviewed me just talking, and I naturally told you, so now it's got your brain thinking, like, how can I now pay it forward a little bit more? And that's all I ever want to see people do, just in general. Like, how do I pay it forward? How do I make, especially for Black men too, like my brother's bipolar. It's not a secret. If somebody sees us, people know he's bipolar. But just like watching him go through that shame of thinking that shouldn't be verbalized, or people shouldn't know that, or oh my God, like, and I'm like, hey, it's your superpower, because the way you listen to music, you hear something totally different than I hear, because just the way your brain is shaped. It's okay. Take the medicine, you'll be all right. So I think it's amazing that you listen to me, and now you're like, wow, maybe I should be doing it on a different platform, because that means that, one, you're active listening, like you're really paying attention, and then your brain is really like, what's the next step? What's the next like journey in that process, that I make this bigger and better, and it connects to other people. I'll help you, because I love doing that kind of stuff too.
Nice. All right. For a fun question, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what will you do?
Okay, I would pay everything off that I've ever owed in life. I would buy my mom her dream house with that white granite island kitchen in the Hamptons. I would probably take care of my whole family, my immediate family, just make sure they were set up for life. Then I would buy my dream car, which is a G-Wagon matted out black on black. Pay with it in cash. But I honestly would probably live the same way. I'd buy my Birkin. The Birkin would be bought.
the G-Wagon.
Mike, you see my Birkin? That's how you would know I won the lottery. I'd be like, hey, Birkin.
What
And I would definitely invest, of course.
Yeah.
And I would also probably, I love like giving back. So I would have to have, it doesn't have to have my name on it, but I would have to have a foundation that actually does something, not just like, oh, I'm handing out nuggets tomorrow for the homeless so I can write this off now. Like, I want it to actually be something that's like amazing.
Nice. When I say forgiveness, what comes to mind?
Being able to remember that everybody is fallible. Nobody's perfect. Nobody. Also, that everybody deserves grace, even a murderer. Because we all don't know what we're capable of. So you have to remember that there's a higher power, and we have to be thankful and just appreciative that we are offered the opportunity to forgive in the first place.
Is there anyone that you would like to thank or express your appreciation for that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Yeah. Two people. My Aunt Shirley, who's like, she's just the most amazing person. And my best friend Ed, aka my brother. Ed changed my life, in all honesty. yeah, it definitely changed the trajectory of my life because he hired me to run this club and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and just kind of let me grow and develop and do my own thing. And out of it, he literally is my, like, that's my family. Like, I don't know what I would do without Ed. I call Ed about, we've partied together, we've hung out together, we've worked together. You know, he's been my biggest cheerleader, my biggest critic at the same time in his own way. I actually wish he would do this, but he would never do it because he's like the dopest person on the planet, but would never do this. Yeah, it definitely changed my life. Like him letting me help with the styling. I mean, I've gotten to go to VMAs, just stuff you couldn't have told me I was gonna do ever, and it was all you have to meet Ed because if you meet him, you would understand. He's just so like chill, way back, like yeah, just oh yeah, okay, I need you to come help me do VMAs. What? Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, okay. Oh, I need you to be on this video shoot. Oh, who's on it? Lady Gaga. Oh, okay. Like he's just put me in these rooms and places I never, ever, ever, ever could imagine. And it's not just because it's cool stuff, but um, he really believes in me probably more than I do. And he's there when I've been down. He's there when I've been up. He's just, that's my family.
Nice.
And I thank him. And he would probably laugh it off, but I'll actually let him see this and I'll be like, look.
Nice. All right, for our final question, how do you define success?
That's changed over the past couple of years. I define success as being content and comfortable in your lot in life. I think there's so many people who are walking around with masks and unhappy. And I feel like my version of success is not always a daily happiness, but it's being comfortable in my own space and my own skin and being content with how my life is going because happiness is an emotion, so it comes and goes. But when you're comfortable and you're relaxed in your life, to me, that's like success.
Nice.
And money comes along with that once you're in that place.
Indeed. Well, it's been a pleasure. We connected, we politic, and we would definitely do this again in the near future. And hopefully, we could do it with the parents. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and I'm very excited that you have like a bigger vision.
Yeah.
That's so exciting to me. That makes me really happy.
Nice. Thanks a bunch. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll find you some other people.